Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So welcome to Face to Face. We are here today for our most recent and up-to-date interview with a woman by the name of Yeva from, I'm going to let her tell you where she's from, but she's currently working with an organization called Unlimited Partnership. That's unlimitedpartnership.org. You can check them out on the web. They're into quite a bit, actually, and it looks like they focus a lot on microfinance. So, Yeva, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, hey, David. Thank you very much for having me here. It's really my pleasure.
So where are you today? Are you in country, or are you back home, or where are you calling from?
Well, originally, actually, I'm from Latvia. That's a small country in Northeast Europe. But currently, I'm in Germany. I'm just finishing my degree in master's. Yeah, it's a program called Global Studies, but it's just part of this adventure and part of the work I do for Unlimited Partnership.
So you know what, Eva, tell me a little bit more about who Unlimited Partnership is, and maybe a little bit about how they started. I'd love to hear about the genesis of the organization.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, it's a good story because it started like 3 years ago. Friend of mine, Rosie Kern, we studied together some time ago in Cyprus as exchange students, like really young girls. She contacted me and said she has this great idea that why don't young graduates come together and do something for the world. And she sent this email around her contact list, and actually quite a few of us responded to that email and saying, okay, that sounds really good, and what do we do? So we were brainstorming for a while what could be the ideas, what we could do together. And we came up with the idea we could do a charity work, and we created an NGO called Unlimited Partnership. And the core idea was that some of us, those friends who have international education, will come together and work on voluntary basis for the next 3 to 5 years and create a project somewhere in the world and apply our theoretical knowledge and practice. This is how actually we started.
Did you say that you are all working voluntarily for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, actually that's the case. We agreed it on the day the email was sent around, and that's the case for today. Yeah, actually none of us are getting paid for the work we do. Yeah.
So how are you surviving? Are you doing other work as well at the same time, or are you all working on scholarships? How are you actually making ends meet?
Actually, at that time, the idea of we didn't think much how we're gonna arrange it, and we thought, okay, we're gonna just work for the organization part-time and go on with our lives, and this will be like a side activity. But I must say, in reality, it worked out that we had to work really a lot. All our free time, weekends, holidays went into the NGO work. But yeah, basically we carried on with our professional lives. We graduated schools that time, and it was 2010, so basically 4 years ago. And we applied for jobs and we got our professions done. But since the first day, we continue to work voluntary, and that's the case now. That we work, and we work also for the charity.
So is the hope that eventually you will be full-time employees of Unlimited Partnership, or do you see yourself as a volunteer for a short period for the next couple of years, and then moving on to somewhere else, or do you think you'll be with them for a long time to come?
I think this is kind of life project for us because, from beginning we were 15, 20 people. Everyone was inspired, yes, we're going to do changes. We're going to change the world. But actually, reality hit us and majority dropped out because of this commitment. And in the end, there are just 3 of us left. That would be me and 2 other German girls, Rosie, who started the project, and her friend Ina. And yeah, I think it will be for our life because unlimited partnership is now part of us. And personally, I wouldn't like to get paid for this particular organization because it's more work for heart and something that we created this way. And sure, I mean, I will have other jobs and I will continue to do that work, but unlimited partnership will stay as it is, the model. Yeah.
So, are you currently? That's really quite an incredible commitment on your part and your other two partners. I'm amazed that three of you have been able to keep it going. I'm always encouraged and affirmed when I hear of others around the world doing things that are motivated by their commitment and their courage and their passion. So, yeah, good for you guys. It's amazing. Why Sierra Leone?
Actually, Sierra Leone, because Rosie, the girl who kind of sent that first email around, she was studying in London at that time and learning about civil wars. And actually, it was really sad story of like civil war of Sierra Leone. And it was one of the poorest countries that time. And we were just thinking, okay, what could we do to prevent such a situation in future? And we all realized that it will be something to do with education and children, and that this is how we started, like, okay, let's do something for kids. But then we realized that, okay, we could provide education for kids, but that doesn't help for the current situation. And we decided to focus on women. And we kind of put together the education we have, and that would be from my side economics and finance at that time. And I was working in India with another NGO and observing microfinance and this whole idea of Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh, how he started the microfinance movement as such. And we were thinking, okay, that sounds really good. And we looked at all kind of practices from other countries and other NGOs. And the idea was that, okay, we could do that, but we want to make it self-sustainable. Like, no matter what kind of charity we do, it should be self-sustainable in the first place. And secondly, we want to assist the people, but not to create like dependency from us. So that's why we thought, okay, let's do microfinance and let's do it in Sierra Leone. This is how we started.
So do all of you have a development background in the sense, you say you're finishing off your global studies program. Are the other two, your partners have a background in this kind of work, the nonprofit sector or development of one kind or another?
Actually, like, then we have to go a little bit back. It's like 3-4 years at that time. Actually, all of us were like young graduates from our first education, like bachelors, or other girls had master at that time, and those were like international relations. But as for me, I came out of pure business school that is like mainstream and like we should work in insurance companies or in banks and stuff like that. But I never liked it much, and I was lucky enough to find this like field of globalization or trends like sustainability and microfinance. So actually, unlimited partnership microfinance for that time was my first development project, and also for the others. Like, all of us were kind of new in the field, but I must say, in these 3 to 4 years, a lot has changed. And even though the other girls, they have moved more in the private sector, as for me, it opened the door for all I do, and ever since. Actually, I have been working a lot with development projects, and it showed me a great direction.
So tell me a little bit about why you used the phrase pure business, and you said you never really liked it that much. The idea of an insurance company or a banking company. What? I'm really interested in that. How you studied this one path, and it just didn't speak to you on some level, so you chose to go and change the world instead on a whole other level. I'm fascinated by that.
Well, it goes like that because, like, the traditional economic model that we are taught in business schools is that we have to create a profit by all means, and the ultimate goal of the business is profit. And if you take the graph that it shows, it says it's supply and demand, so we have to make sure that we produce as much as possible with the cheapest price. But it just raised me like to think, like, how comes then, what about all other issues? What about environment? And so let's say if it's cheaper to produce in China, then why would I have to like ship all that stuff from China if probably I could produce it at home in that time, like my home country, Latvia, but economically it would not be like profitable. And I was just thinking, like, okay, is there any other way? Is there something else we still could work in the system and do? But that actually brings us to the next level. And I must say, when I was working sadly on with the microfinance, I think we did a good job, and the families are really, really happy, like the ones that we support. At the same time, I'm still always kind of thinking, okay, if we provide the money, are we still not creating like dependency from it? And that's why there's this new idea that we plan to kind of start. It's a social enterprise, and that's personally for me. It inspired me also to write my master thesis on that. I'm looking at social enterprise and how the whole system is changing, like how there are people in the world who feel like that it's not enough, just to work for a company that doesn't inspire them or doesn't do something better than just making profit for one person or for some. And I think one way or another way, it's like this story all about like making sense of our lives and working something that is useful for us, and we still can earn money with that.
My last interview was with a woman by the name of Julia Molden, and she's written a book called Ordinary Radicals. Oh, I can't think of the title right now. I'm sorry. Isn't that horrible? It's called We Are the New Radicals. And basically, it's about people like you and others who kind of get to a point in their life and they say, you know what, this isn't really satisfactory. I don't like this, what I'm doing right now. It's not feeding me. It's not providing for my sort of emotional and spiritual needs. And I'm going to go and do something different with my life. And I'm going to try to make money while I do that. And I'm going to change the world while I create this, this new business opportunity or whatever the case might be. And it's a really fascinating book, just about all these wonderful stories of people, like I say, like yourself, who are, kind of turning up the world upside down one step at a time. It's really quite amazing. I love the phrase you used, Yeva, is there any other way? You said, you asked yourself sort of the question, is there any other way? And I think, would you agree with me that any kind of entrepreneurial spirit has to come out of a question like that?
Yeah, definitely, and that is like how these people started, and all of them, like I think also these radicals that you talk about, they ask this question. So how do we do that? Like, what is the way forward? But I found it fascinating that actually a lot of people who work in the NGO world, they still kind of don't recognize or can ignore a little bit this part that actually, one part is doing an amazing job, like that's for sure. Like all around the people we see, all around the globe, we see people who do incredible things with their NGOs. But still, like what bothers a little bit me is like, okay, but how do they sustain themselves? Where's the money then coming from? And this dependency syndrome that, okay, we apply for big funds and NGOs make proposals and yeah, they do good work, but somebody still pay for that, So, I mean, that's why at least at the moment we are kind of looking at the format of social enterprise and what we could do under that. Yeah.
I was reading one of the projects is it in Telu? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's Telu Bongo village, and yeah, that's a small town in a small actual village, like really rural village in a jungle. It's near to second biggest city in Sierra Leone, Bo, and yeah, there are like around 2,000 people living there, but we have 63 women under our program at the moment. And each of them are having their little business, but that would be under the microfinance. And this is, it's a like typical microfinance program in the sense that we provide small loans, and they have to. The women are in groups of 5, and they have to pay them back after 3 to 6 months, depending on the season, with a small interest rate, and the interest rate would go for the next group, so for the next beneficiaries. But then it started last year around it. I was just thinking that, what, we should do something else, and actually we did a small trick, like we collected those loans back and the interest rate, and we would not distribute it like a bigger loan next time. We would just continue the same way. And then with the interest rate, we said, okay, let's start a bakery project. Because at the moment, each woman can choose their own little business, what they want to do. And it has been really well. They have done good job and improve their lives, and all children now go to school, and that's a big accomplishment for us. But we felt like, okay, there still would be need for like a community-based business, like a cooperative, something like that. And so yeah, we collected those funds and started a bakery project. And now all of the women are working together, and they're working for themselves. And all money they earn that goes immediately back to them, and they're in charge to arrange their own way. And so basically, we're not providing a loan anymore. That is like a separated unit. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, you've got 3 women that are working and running in limited partnership. Mm-hmm. You say you have, 63 partnerships with women in this rural village of Telu. Why the focus on women? Yeva, I mean, anyone in development kind of understands that there's a gender disparity, to say the least, in the global south. Well, frankly, in the world, never mind the global south. Mm-hmm. What is it about women that you've chosen to work with them? Was it a conscious decision? Has it just worked out that way? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, so as for the organization, why we were just girls, it's mainly this is how it worked out. Basically, I guess it's something to do with the commitment in general. But for the beneficiaries, for the Telu women, from the beginning, as I said, we wanted to actually focus on children, and then we thought, okay, like the best way is to empower a family, and so we did some research and some field work before, like to make sure that this program gonna work, and we figured out that in places like Sierra Leone, especially in the rural setup, in the families, a lot of men they don't have the jobs exactly in the village. They would go outside, like in diamond or gold mining places, so they would leave the family, and it would be run by women who stay at home, who have 5 to 6 children, who have to cook, who have to go to farms and do farming work and take care of their families, but in the same time they wouldn't have any income, because they would just wait for some weeks or months, depending on the season, for the men to come back and to provide them with some income to sustain the family. So therefore we thought, okay, and actually that raised the biggest implication, that since that's the case, the men come home and all the money mostly goes for the food items or for basic survival. So there's not money much left for kids for school fees, and in order for them to go to school. So we thought, okay, why don't we give a small loan for the women and try to see if they can do some domestic, basically, work that could bring also some income. Let's say those farming items they would bring to the nearby market and sell, and have some little cash in their hands, and hopefully with the time would develop skills to go on a bigger scale. And actually, this is exactly how it worked out. And then the next story started when the women become so powerful, like 1.5 or 2 years time, that they start to say, you know what, now we can pay our school fees, we can do all our stuff, and we are not so dependent from the men. And obviously has social implications there as well, because of how the families are arranged. But our approach from the first day was that we will not actually go there as a white girls, like being smart or something, and just tell them what to do. So from the first day, the moment we decided to work in Sierra Leone, we were looking for local partners, basically an NGO who is working in Sierra Leone, and who could be our local partners and actually do the work and help their own people and empower them. So our idea was that we could empower the local people. And we got super lucky, and we are working with an organization called Hilfe Direct. It's in German translation, it's Direct Help. And it's an NGO that works in Sierra Leone for the past 19 years now. And it's a super good match because it's run by 2 people who are in their late 60s, 70s. It's a German lady and a Sierra Leonean man. And they're like the past 20 years, they have built incredible things over there, and they have a school that they support 150 children, and they have a huge hospital, and they have a lot of scholarship programs. And they were the ones who said, okay, girls, you have amazing idea, you work for free, and I think we have to support you just with our local resources. And they provided us with a loan officer, and actually they're the ones who kind of direct this relationship among the Telu people and among the women, and how to arrange these things. So actually our job is just to be quietly, to back it up and to observe these wonderful stories and to advise them and to work with them.
I want to ask you a little bit more about partnership in a second and how important that's been to you working on the ground. But tell me a little bit more about women. You made a comment there, an offhand comment about commitment in men, and I mean, as a teacher, an instructor at Humber College in Toronto, one of the things I noticed here is that of the 85 students that we typically get every year, I would say a good 85% of them are women. I don't, there's always 10 or 15 or maybe 12% of the class, 8, 10, 12, 15 men in the class. And usually they're very passionate, very committed for the most part. What are we putting our finger on here? Do women want to change the world and men don't? When you look at the stats, when you look at statistics, if you want to really affect change in a culture and a climate, I do a lot of work in Cambodia and Southeast Asia, it's the women you want to empower. And you talk about powerful women in your communities, or in Telu now, having this, these social implications. I just wondered if you could speak a little more to that gender disparity, that gender implication.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's something to do with the global events as such, and I think in this century it's the case that we have a lot of technologies available, and education is the most accessible to everyone than never before. I'm not saying it's the case everywhere. Still, there are huge problems all around the world, especially in Africa, that the girls don't go to school because they are not considered worth to do that. But still, all around the globe, women are taking charge of things in terms that they want to get educated, they want to know things, they want to speak, they want to read, and actually when it comes down to projects like that, where you have to have a lot of patience and putting things together and saving, I think women in general are good at that. And that happens in Telu because the income that we create, they're not big. It's we don't talk about thousands of dollars, euros, or whatever. It's very little money. Normally we give loan that would be around $60-$70, and the return, the profit they make, it's 20, 30, 40, it depends. But still, it's a little money for everyone. But when you look at that they didn't had any income before, and they're able to put that little money together month by month by month, and actually what happens is that at the end of the half year or year, that amount is 2 or 3 times bigger than men bring in. Because, as we have observed in Sierra Leone, that's the case when men go on the work, they are looking for big money, big profits, fast profits. Let's make it quickly and let's do it and just let's gather together. But the women are oh, it's okay, patiently, penny by penny together.
No, I think there's something very interesting there. Well, it's certainly something that's on my mind. I have both a son and a daughter. I see the differences. Some of them genetic, some of them learned, and it just I think it is a comment on where we're heading. As a culture, as a global culture, as we try to continue to make a difference. Where do we invest our time? Where do we invest our efforts? I remember many years ago being in Cambodia and meeting a young woman who was about, Sopiane was her name, and she was about 14 at the time, and we got to know each other. This director introduced me to about 6 young women who were sitting outside the one high school in this village of about 85,000 people. It was a big area, not a village, but a big area with many villages in it. And she said, yeah, well, what'll happen is I'm going to reach a certain grade, and then my parents will no longer be able to afford to send me to school, and my brother will get to go to school, and I won't. Mm-hmm. And she, because let's send the boy to school because that's just what we do. And I don't know, it seems like we're so far away from realizing that this gender inequality or inequity is something that really does make a difference, if that makes any sense to you at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. Unfortunately, that is still the case that, yeah, men run the world in that sense, I, yeah.
I'm still trying to figure how to do that out, how to do that. Yeah.
I don't know, like that reminds me of a story when actually when we went to implement the project in Saint Leon, I supposed to stay there 6 weeks, but one of this local partner, this director of the organization I just mentioned, he so much inspired me that I actually stayed in Saint Leon and I started to work for his hospital. And I remember a day when we were building storage, and basically I had the workers, like 15 men, and we supposed to put some shelves in place, and I was in charge of that work. And I went there and I said, okay, guys, we have to put these shelves here. And some of them wanted to put nails in the wall, and I was really against that. And I said, no, we cannot do that because it will destroy the whole wall. And they said, no, we're going to do that because we think it's a good decision. And I was like, no, we're clearly not going to do that. And they said, like, you're a woman and you don't understand anything and you're a white woman. So, no, we're not going to do that. And then it ended up that I had to go upstairs to find somebody in the office, a man who's like my co-worker, and say to him, like, I'm sorry, you have to tell this man exactly what I say. So that's the irony of life. So we were standing like these three parties, me, this co-worker, and this group of people. And I would say to the co-worker, no, we cannot put the nails in the wall. And he would say exactly the same words, no, we cannot put the nails in the wall.
Yeah, I think anyone who's worked in the majority world anywhere, has got a story or two like that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Listen. Before I forget, I've been making some notes here. Why do you think you do what you do? So, earlier on you talked about pure business, and I asked you a little bit about, you've asked the question, is there another way? You didn't really like the whole notion of going into the business. You wanted to change the world. Why do you think you want to do that? Was there an experience in your childhood? Does it have something to do with your upbringing? Just always interested to know what the catalyst is as well for people.
Well, the biggest desire, I guess, was to travel, because I come actually from a very small village, and all my family are animal doctors, and I grew up in a farm, and nobody ever traveled. And I said, like, no, I would like to travel. And they were like, okay, we really don't understand this concept, but if you think you can find a way to do that, then okay, go for it. And my way was that, like, I thought, okay, maybe I can do it through education. And it just happened I got a scholarship to study business. Like, initially I would study something else, like theater or some arts or something creative. And I found out that I'm really good with the management, just making things done, finding where the gaps are and making things done, and that's actually a very good quality for business. But I thought, okay, maybe I can apply it somewhere else. And this has led me through all life. Like, I see a problem and I kind of like to sort it out. And I guess it comes from my parents, because as an animal doctor, like, all you do is you help somebody who is in need, like a little one, like an animal. So it just the way I grew up, maybe. But yeah, the business education definitely helps, like, play the role.
It sounds, Yeva, like you're very much a problem solver, and like you said, a project manager, and maybe that's been with you for years. And being able to take those skills and those business skills and apply them to working in the global South, I think is absolutely necessary. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that we need more people, like you, who get that kind of training, but are motivated maybe to do a different kind of work. And that's kind of what Julia Molden's book about, We Are the New Radicals. These are people who have worked in banking institutions and in high corporate jobs, who are just tired and fed up and want something else. Hey, so tell me, so you focused on Muhammad Yunus's work, the banker to the poor, microfinance. You're looking at education. You're building capacity on a variety of levels. Are you familiar with the work of Jeffrey Sachs?
Not really, not particular.
So he wrote a book called How to End Poverty, and he's an economist, and he basically talks about this metaphor of a ladder leaning against the wall, and he basically says that what we need to do is we need to get the poorest of the poor, those suffering from extreme poverty, and this is financial poverty, onto the first rung of the ladder, and help them up. We need to prop them up onto that rung, and then they can go off on their own, and they can build their own businesses, or they can start their own, buy a piece of property, or they can, start to farm their own land and attend to their children's education and so on. Do you think that's kind of what's slowly happening in communities like Telu, around Sierra Leone and other places in Africa, or what's your sense?
I would partly agree, but partly also disagree. Because, like, what triggers me and what I'm asking myself is, like, do I really, or do we as an organization or any NGO, do we really need to go in a foreign country and do that kind of work? And the ultimate answer is, like, yes, of course, because we are helping people. But when I think on the, bigger scale, that I think it's kind of role for the government. And the irony of that whole story is that most of the countries, actually all countries in the world, has a lot of natural resources or capacity to do so. But then the implications come in, and this is like government and governance issues and trade and the monetary system we kind of live in, and the inequalities. So I think if any human being should have a decent opportunity for water and for food and just basic education and those kind of basic things, and then we could lift people up. Rather the question is who's supposed to provide these things, And I think it's still the obligation of the government and just people, sometimes from Sierra Leone. I used to live in London, and we would meet so many Sierra Leoneans who have got education all around the globe, and now they're located, let's say, in London. But they're not actually going back to their country, I don't see them coming back and working for the people. And sometimes we kind of got these comments like, oh, yeah, girls, good job, but what about those who are outside? And I mean, it's, I guess, not my job to take them back and bring them in the field and provide these things. But actually, those are the ones who can change the governments, and they should go back in their governments and provide basically these needs for their people.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, I've got a couple more questions for you, and believe it or not, we're sort of coming close to the end of our time together. But I want to ask you about the post-conflict situation in Sierra Leone. I've certainly worked in Cambodia, been into Indonesia, Rwanda, different countries that have dealt with some pretty horrific situations, genocide and civil war and so on. I want to get to that in a second, but just before I ask you a couple of those questions, tell me, how do you, I was, reading on your site, and I'm not sure where it was, but you talk about people in developed countries having appropriate and up-to-date knowledge. Something like that. And it just made me think of, I wonder how you as a team, the three of you, have tried to motivate people to care. How have you got people in Latvia and Germany and the Netherlands, you studied there, how do you get people to care about what you're doing in Sierra Leone?
I think we just keep doing what we are doing. Many times there are people who show interest, and then they say, oh, we like the concept and we want to join your team, but actually so far nobody has survived long, because it's a lot of commitment to continue. But I came to the conclusion that the best way to teach the care is just to show them example, and I don't care much of what the others think. I just do what I have to do, and if it's useful for somebody, then it's great. This is how I ended up here talking with you, David. Just somebody told the story that, okay, these girls are doing this, and it went forward. And I think that is the way to basically just do your work good, and if others notice, that's absolutely great. And the second thing, we just started a volunteer program, and because we think it's kind of important to share all these amazing places we go, and these people like Telu people and the local partners. So we give an opportunity for students or actually any professional to go to Sierra Leone and to live there for a while and experience, and basically on the same principles and concept that they do voluntary work, and we are not an organization that makes profit of that. We just share all we have, and I spend time to explaining people and just to Skype with them or to provide the overview, and they can go there and volunteer and live with the locals. And that's something, that helps a lot.
I love what you said about. I mean, I continue to get frustrated about how to get people to care. How do you get people to, commit their time and their effort and their money and so on? I care so much about Cambodia and what's gone on there, and it's been a huge part of my life academically, but also on the ground. And I, I've been working there, like I say, on development issues for about 13 years, and there's so much need, and I can get so angry sometimes that more people aren't caring and involved and so on, and I love what you said about just, we're just going to continue to do what we do, and we're going to show others by doing it, by making a difference, by being committed, by being passionate and focused and intentional. And I think that's a great answer.
Well, there's something else. Like sometimes, actually, the business school taught me the trick. There is a saying that the first impression is the most important one. So sometimes I play this trick that I just, what I think is that people who care are kind of in the same group, but those who don't care are from a different group. Like, let's say, business people, like sitting in some posh place and then drinking their coffee. So the trick is sometimes that we kind of filtrate into that group and just have a conversations with them. We attend a lot of workshops, a lot of networking events, and share our stories on that level. And that actually helps, because I think it's not that people don't care in general. It's rather that maybe they haven't heard well enough, Maybe it wasn't told their language, but I mean their language is just something from somebody of whom they care,
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think sometimes people just don't know. You don't have the knowledge, you don't have the understanding.
Or the world is just running so fast and there's so much going on. And I think it's also the way the media works, and that sometimes frustrates me. Like, I don't watch TV anymore personally, because I think if it's something really big, then it will come to me, because the news, it projects a lot of negativity, and I think people are tired of that. And the moment somebody asks on the street, hey, why don't you donate like €5 or dollars, people start to get tired of that everyone asks them. But I think if their kids, like coming from school back home, tells them the story, like, hey mom, dad, listen, this is what I learned today, and this is really interesting, and you give like a human face to the story, then it becomes a different thing.
Indeed, absolutely. Can you tell me, just as we come to kind of a close here, can you tell me a little bit about the reconciliation process that's going on in the country, about forgiveness, about how families are dealing with some of the issues in a post-conflict situation? Is it a country waiting to explode, or is it really finally healing on a really substantial level?
Well, I remember before we went to Sierra Leone, all our families, everyone was worried, because we were told, we are going to Sierra Leone, and I personally was ready, like, for everything, that I'm gonna land and I need to hide under the first tree. But actually, the moment we came off to the plane, the people were just smiling and welcoming us, and we were like, okay, so where's the like affected war people, wherever it's happening? And actually it's not. You would be surprised, but I think from all the countries I have been, and at the moment it's like around 25-30 countries, I found Sierra Leone is the most friendliest country where I have been. And the civil war ended like now. It has been like more than like 12 years ago. It's like a long time. Actually, it's a short time, but long enough that actually you cannot see that anymore. In terms of in the relationship level, everyone would be super friendly, and culturally, nothing indicates that there was a war. What indicates the leftovers from that time is rather the economic development and the poverty that people face. And so in the past years, more and more globalization has hit like West Africa and also Sierra Leone. So there are a lot of companies coming in and doing extraction of natural resources. And those basically after the civil war who couldn't get education or were just out of jobs, those are doing not so well because of these opportunities that they didn't get. Like there's a whole generation who didn't attend properly school, and I have friends who are in the age of 30 who are just accomplishing like high school or first degree university because before they just didn't have a chance. But that doesn't mean that they're not smart or something. It's just the opportunities are not there. But yeah, I must say Sierra Leone is not at all the story that I told before. It is super friendly country with extremely tolerant. It's funny, like their religion, it's 50 Christians and 50 Muslims, and they're known for the one of the most tolerant countries regards that. They have intermarriages and they have so many holidays because they celebrate both Christian and the Muslim. So actually, it's really a good place to be.
Yeah, there's an upside to being inclusive. And to embracing your neighbor. Oh, that's great. That's a really, I think that's a wonderful way to end our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Yeva. I really appreciate your honesty and your thoughts. For those of you listening, it's check out the organization. It's unlimitedpartnership.org, and you've been listening to a conversation with Yeva from Germany today, yes?
Yeah, from Germany.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and I wish you all well.
Thank you, David. Thanks a lot.